Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is the new patrol agent in charge of the U.S. Border Patrol Station in Newport. Our guest is Steve Henesy.
Thanks, Scott.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your new position.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're following in some big footsteps. You're the former commander, Fernando Beltran, has been on here before.
Right.
And so I wanted to introduce the new man on the block. But you're not actually new to the area.
No, I've been in the Newport station for about 2.5 years now.
Right. I know this is something that Fernando and I always talked about. Maybe I'm a stickler for details. And he explained, I used to tell him, Fernando, why do you call it the Newport station? You're in Derby. Because I live right near the station. And I guess it's because you have a mail-in address that's Newport. You have a phone number that's Newport.
Right.
So, thus, the Newport station.
Correct. Yeah.
But you'll keep hearing me gripe about that every once in a while. Come on, it's in Derby.
I think it started as the Island Pond Station, then it went to Derby, over the POE, and now over here. But yeah.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you, not only on your new position, but as this interview is taking place, which is Wednesday, it follows directly on the heels of the heroin raids that took place yesterday, which was Tuesday, which I thought was a great Valentine's present to the people of the area. And I mean it. Valentine's is a time of love. Well, I think it was a great way to show your love and sweep the streets of some of them.
Right.
And did you take part in that raid?
The Border Patrol supported the operation. It was primarily driven by the Vermont State Drug Task Force and Homeland Security investigations.
Right.
But we did support the operation. There was 80 to 100 law enforcement officers from various agencies out yesterday, serving warrants, picking people up off the streets, and getting the drugs off the streets. So, again, we supported it, and I think it really demonstrates how all the agencies can work together to make a safer streets for us here.
Yeah, because it was funny watching Facebook. Once you got moving, nobody knew exactly what was going on, but it became Facebook chatter. What are all these cops doing? There was helicopters in the air, and of course there was talk about is it drug raids or is it a Trump raid? On aliens. I pretty much knew right from the get-go what it was, but I thought it was long overdue. And I commend all of you for taking part in it. And how do you? I know you have children, within the area that they could get mixed up in it. How do you feel about? What do you feel about the drug epidemic?
I was surprised when I first came up here. I came up here from Washington D.C. thinking get out of the city, come to the smaller areas. It was a shock to realize that the problem up here on the drug scene here. But I think you have to be involved in your kid's life and kind of stay on top of them and try to steer them away from that. It's the best you can do.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised. I know I used to have a cousin in Connecticut who warned us years in advance that what we would be experiencing now. He was an old guy with a lot of wisdom, and he said, he lived down around Hartford, Connecticut. Right. And he says, don't worry. He said, what we're experiencing now will come to you. And it's usually, a lot of things, even trends, it takes a while to get here.
Right.
Even clothing trends and that. And then drug trends, they do have a tendency to come north, and eventually it bites us too.
Right. I think, again, I try to stay involved in my daughter's. My youngest is the only one home. She's in high school. Stay involved with her, keep her involved in activities. I think that's important. I think there needs to be something for the youth here to do to keep them away from those. Right.
I know being a long-term local, since the days of the Ice Age, some of my family's been here. I look down through the list of people, and some of them I can go down, well, that makes sense. But every once in a while you hit somebody, look on it at that list, and you say, that makes no sense, because there are people in that list who had everything going for them. You have other people, you know, they were even born into tough situations. But you have others that somewhere along the way they took the wrong turn and something happened.
Yeah, I think everyone's wired different, and you never know what people are going to do. So
Right. So who is Steve Henesy? Where did you come from?
Before I was in Newport here, I was in Washington, D.C. I worked at the commissioner's office for about a year and a half for Customs and Border Protection, the commissioner. I did about a year at Border Patrol headquarters in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I was in Arizona, 4 or 5 different stations for 11 years, and I was in San Diego for 7 years prior to that. I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I said I spent the majority of my career in the southwest border before going to headquarters and eventually up here.
Now, in southwest corner, you had a lot of border activity
Right.
there. What did a day-to-day operation? What does a day look like for a border patrol officer on the southern border?
Okay, a little different than here. We very busy. I worked at most of the high traffic, high volume stations over my career. I chased it around. I promoted, followed the activity. Long shifts when I was in Tucson, Arizona. 14, 16, 18-hour days were not uncommon. The amount of arrests, the amount of drugs and guns coming across the border down there made for some interesting times, some, I guess, fun times, but interesting times.
Right. Now, I can't recall where our Newport's representative to the State House, Gary Vians, is retired
Right.
member of the U.S. Border Patrol. I can't remember. Did you meet him in your travels? Was he ever your supervisor?
No, not directly that I recall.
Okay.
I knew his name, and when I got here, heard his name, and I remembered that name, but not sure where I remembered it from. And I met him at Fernando's retirement.
Right, because I know there's been a few, like Fernando actually got up here because of Gary, because Fernando was looking to get off the southern border, and
Right.
so and I think some other people came up here because of Gary, and I just couldn't remember if you were one of them or not.
No, I got up here through Fernando. Fernando took a chance on me and brought me up from headquarters and gave me the opportunity to be here.
But when I was talking to you, did you say, though, you actually learned about this station by going up the interstate?
Yeah, I'm second oldest of 9 kids. My youngest brother he's a special needs, and he lives in Hardwick, Vermont.
Right.
He's lived there probably 10, 11 years.
Right.
I came up to visit him one time, and I was driving up the interstate, saw the sign there, it said Border Patrol. I said, I pulled off the interstate, and they were in the old station back then.
Right.
I rang the doorbell, and actually Fernando answered the door that day too. So.
And I bet you he welcomed you in with open arms,
All right.
didn't he?
Yep, gave me a tour of everything and talked for quite some time. So.
You probably know that the one area maybe you might be able to match up to him is his cooking. Not only was he known as, as the agent in charge, but he's also a master. He's also a master cook. He has a smoker that he pulls behind on his vehicle. Are you into that?
I'll cook at home, but no, I can't compare to Fernando and smoking brisket. No.
Right. So what attracted you here then? You're going up. You're going to visit your brother. That's one thing. But why did you want to get out of Washington, D.C.? 'Cause I love to visit Washington, D.C., but is there a difference of visiting and living?
Yes. In Washington, D.C., I'm glad I went there. Great opportunity. I saw a lot, learned a lot, but you're looking at 10, 12-hour days in an office. It wears you down. It's a grind. And I wanted to get back out in the field and to be an agent again.
Right.
So I think D.C. should have a time limit. You should learn the things that you can learn in D.C. at headquarters and then come out and apply those in the field.
Right. Yeah, because are you like a working commander, like whereas you run the station, but do you still actually have to get out in the field occasionally?
I don't have to, per se, but I'd like to. I can't know what's going on in the field if I'm in the station. So
Right.
I like to get out, drive around. Sometimes I'll park and I'll walk.
Right.
Takes people by surprise when they see you out walking, but you can't see everything at 40 miles an hour, and I can't see it from my desk, so I
That's
like
true.
to get out there.
So compared to life on the southern border for a patrolman, they have day-to-day action on the southern border, don't they?
Right.
Is that really true on the northern border?
Not to the volume that we had on the southern border. There is activity up here. It's a different kind of activity where on the southern border you're getting the economic migrants for the most part coming over to work. Catch them, send them back. They'll try again tomorrow. Here it's, in my opinion, more organized type crime. You have large cities north of us, Montreal and Toronto. We have the interstate here, direct line to Boston and New York. So to me, there's more of an organized cross-border crime here than it was down south. And with Canada, I believe, taking in refugees or taking in immigrants, we don't know what the threat is north of us, and so I'd say our volume is lower, but we may have a higher risk than on the southern border.
Right. Yeah. What I've been told, because I've always had a great working relationship with the Border Patrol. I worked for the Chronicle years ago as a newspaper reporter, but then one of your former commanders, who I believe is still in the Border Patrol, John Pfeiffer,
Correct.
was even a chapter in my Rum Runners book. Then I had a great relationship with Fernando, and now you're on my show. So I kind of know a lot about what you do, and what I've been told is that by many people is, no, you don't get the volume, but if something's big is going to happen on one of the borders, it's probably going to be the northern border.
Right.
Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I believe that. I said it's a higher risk up here. So if with the direct line to Boston and any of the major cities on the seacoast here on the eastern seaboard, if something was going to come through out of, say, Montreal or Toronto, I think we have more of a risk of it up here.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but I believe it was back in the 1990s. They found a person, I can't remember what descent, coming across the border in Richford with a bomb.
Really?
Yeah. If you're not aware of that, you can. I think John Pfeiffer will be able to explain that little
Okay.
episode, and that was back. That was before. That was before 9/11.
Right.
Do you think? Well, first of all, what do you think about the people here in this region?
I think everyone here has been very welcoming. And when you're on the southern border and you're living in the border communities down south, we're not looked upon as, I guess, friendly. People tend to not wave to you or accept you. But here, everyone's been great. I haven't had any issues with people anywhere I go. So everyone's friendly and so welcoming.
I know I used to razz Fernando a little bit, is say, hey, get you guys to wave a little bit. And he says, you know what, they probably should. He says, this thing is on the southern border, we wave and we get the
Right.
one fingered salute back at us. But it is a different world up here. I do think the Border Patrol are actually very highly respected. Even though the one thing you probably know, a lot of people don't understand. The Border Patrol is the Border Patrol. They patrol
Right.
the border. You're not the people sitting at the ports of entry.
Correct.
You probably hear that all the time, people confusing.
Right, yeah, people ask me, when they say I'm in the Border Patrol, they'll ask if I know so-and-so at the port, and I try to explain, I know we're all under Customs and Border Protection, but at the port, that's Office of Field Operations, the former Customs inspectors. They work at the port. Border Patrol, we patrol in between the ports of entry. So we're responsible for the illegal entries and narcotics or contraband coming across the border between the ports.
Right. And you probably also have tried to maintain a positive relationship with people who live along the border, because let's be real, you guys do a great job even with your technology, though, you can't be everywhere.
Right.
Really, the people who live, particularly within close proximity of the border, they're your real eyes and ears on that border, because they know far more what's going on than you do. Well, in the sense of who's crossing.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the knowledge of the people that have lived here a long time. Since I've been here 2.5 years, I don't know what should or shouldn't be in your backyard, but you do.
Right.
So we count on the community a lot to give us the information. If they see something, call us, let us know. We rely on the community a lot, and I think it's important to have that engagement with the community so we can do our job.
But on the flip side, I don't think we as in citizens have almost even the vaguest idea of how fortunate we are to live in this Mayberry world here, when not everything is as it may seem, as in the people coming through this area. And I think sometimes we do live in a nice area, but I think sometimes we also are lulled into complacency, and I think that's how come in the past you folks have had some resistance, because it's like we don't understand what you understand. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, to a degree, I would agree with that. It's even I think working here, you tend to get into that lulled into complacency, I guess, where there's not a whole lot going on, so I can understand it. A lot of the things that we deal with, we can't discuss. It's intelligence, it's classified, or those types of things we can't discuss with people. We're not out here to run amok in the community. We're just out here doing a job. We live here. We're raising our families here. We're part of the community. We want to see it as a safe community, so that's what we're doing. We're doing our jobs.
So you weren't here during Operation Stone Garden, then, were you?
When it first started?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't.
That was a chapter. That was a difficult chapter for this area, and I think there was some. I think there was some poor communications on all sides, and I'll even say that I even shook my head occasionally, and I just wondered if it did more harm than good because of border relationships with the Border Patrol. But I think that was all. I think that was smoothed over in time.
Yeah.
Because as I said, with people along the border, I think they want to help you in most cases. But there's also, if somebody knows something's going on, can they report to you anonymously? Because I know for a fact there's a lot of people who see things.
Right.
But they want no part in having their names used.
Right, and we don't need names. We don't need anything to identify you. If you provide that, that's great. If you want us to call you back to let you know. And we have had people in the Derby area. They've called us up, told us there's some activity. We've gone out there. We've made arrests. And we'll call them back and say, hey, thanks for the information. We were able to arrest 3 people coming across the border. So we appreciate it.
Not to be political, because I know that isn't part of your job to be political, but we now have a new administration. Will that new president, will that change the way, you've now worked through how many presidents?
3 now.
3.
This is my 3rd.
Do they change the way you do your job?
Yeah, it can change. I think the one thing I've always told people in this job is don't let the politics get to you, because eventually it can. Border Patrol, we're part of the executive branch, and we serve at the command of the president. So whatever president is, as they come out with their orders, that's what we enforce.
Well, that was what came out during Stone Garden, and I even reminded people about this, even though I didn't like everything I saw, that it really, this was coming out of Washington, D.C. Fernando wasn't sitting in his office and saying, okay, today we're going to enforce this law or that. No, all that Stone Garden was coming out of Washington, D.C.
Right.
And you guys were only doing what you were being told to do.
Right. Those are, the Stone Garden is grants that come out of DHS headquarters.
Mm-hmm.
So we facilitate, the program with the state and local agencies, but no, it doesn't come from the Border Patrol. And I believe it's evolved over the years where we're not looking to make Newport police officers immigration officers. They are doing their sworn duty in the border area, and they're not doing immigration enforcement. They do what they normally do.
Right. You know, talk about Newport Police Department, and what kind of relationship do you folks have with, you know, all the other departments in the area?
I've never seen better relationships with other agencies than I have here, and I think a lot of that's due to Fernando. He's made my life easy, where I came in and everything was established already. I didn't have to work at it. He got that before he left. He had that all in place. Even with the international partners over in Canada dealing with the RCMP and CBSA, that he's got that all in place, and it's not a problem for me.
And I guess it's some different to be a member of the Border Patrol, or especially in the leadership role on the northern border, working with the country across the way, versus on the southern border. From what I understand, it's a lot more friendly, cordial relationship on the northern border.
Right, and on the southern border, when you would deal with the government of Mexico, say there was limitations. I mean, it's a different world down there, a different culture down there, a lot more corruption down there. So that's something you have to keep in mind. Things were getting better when I left Tucson. We had it set up where there were intelligence officers from the Mexican government working at the Border Patrol headquarters in Tucson. So they were building that relationship, but it's a different world. Up here, it's great. You know, we go back and forth and meet a lot.
Now, I've only known you for a while. You know, we were both at Fernando's party, but the one thing that strikes me is you might not be Fernando.
Right.
But on the other hand, you have some of your same, like I notice other law agencies sometimes, for some reason, and I won't say what department, they seem to focus on having bullies, you know, as leaders. They're not, you know, like I don't know, I can't really explain it, but the Border Patrol doesn't seem to do that as far as they seem to have people who are just good people, very well spoken, and they're thinkers. And I look at you and Fernando, you have a lot in common. I can't imagine you leading through bullying people.
No, that's not my style. And I think every agency's got those people.
Right.
I've worked for some of those people in the Border Patrol as well. So, but it's not my style. I spent 17 years of my career in the field, on the ground, working with the agents, so I've been through what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
I think that gives me that perspective, and it helps me maybe to get them out of what they've got themselves into.
Well, I will tell you, and you probably know this, Fernando gave you the highest recommendations possible. Yeah. When I asked, I said, all right, Fernando, who am I going to have to get used to now? Because I do write the history of the border region, and I always like to have a good and he said, oh, no, Steve's a great guy, and I know you ran right up to me, introduced yourself at Fernando's party. So tell me about the life of a agent on the northern border. Though, has to get incredibly boring sometimes. Like I run into agents in different places, and sometimes when I run into them, to tell you the truth is I swear their eyes are glazed over because it doesn't happen. Things don't happen just like that here, right. And it's a waiting game. But how do you have a hard time keeping agents up here, especially younger ones?
We haven't had really a hard time keeping them here. A couple guys have left here and gone down to the south. They want the action again. I get it. You know, I said I waited 17 years before I left the southwest border. But that is a challenge here to keep guys engaged. So what I've been trying to do is create new opportunities, maybe so they can try something different, get into a different position, work on their resumes, help them promote. It may promote out of here, but I mean that's been the challenge. And I want to create those opportunities so these guys can advance in their careers.
When you join the Border Patrol, do you have to expect to do like you did, hopscotch around the country? Or I know in the old days, because that that some people, I guess you had to always do a stint on the southern border, but you
Right.
could come back up to your home turf here in this area and spend your career here. But can you do that in the Border Patrol today, or do you have to be willing to travel?
If you want to promote, it's expected that you're going to move around now. It's not the same as it used to be, where you might do 5 years on the southern border, come up to, say, Newport, and advance here. You've got to move around. They want the experience. They want multiple borders, so you have southern border experience, northern border experience, headquarters experience, and take all that and then put you in command of, say, a station with that experience. So it's not the same as it used to be.
Right. So where do you see yourself headed to? Like, do you think you'll be sticking in this position for a while? Is this your end journey, or?
It's I don't have plans to go anywhere else, but I have a little over 7 years before I have to retire. So we'll take it from there. We'll see how, if opportunities come up, I may look at those. But this is my 8th location in 22 years. It's hard. Easy for me because I go to work and I have a network when I get to the station. For families,
Right.
they have to start over every time you move, so it's difficult on families.
And you live in an area where, as I said, parts of my family, we've been here since, not much of an exaggeration, since the ice sheet pulled out.
Right.
And you have a lot of people in this area. Granted, I travel a lot, but there's a lot of people who live here that really haven't hardly even been out of Vermont.
Right.
So,
Right.
and meanwhile, you're getting to see the world.
Right.
But okay, we only have a couple more minutes left. What more would you like to tell the viewers?
I said I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and get in front of the community. I think it's important to know that the community knows we're here. We want to work with them. We need their help, but we can't do this alone. We're part of the community, and we're here to make it safer. If people in the community have information, they can swing by the station, give us that information. If they see an agent out there, stop and talk to the agent. You know what's going on in your backyard better than I know what's going on in your backyard.
And here's the frustration point that I know Border Patrolmen, especially the people in your role, have, is when you run into somebody 2 weeks later and they say, hey, by the way, I saw all this group of people crossing the border like 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Well, that really doesn't help you too much. It's basically contact you then and not in 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah, as soon as you can. That way we can get assets out there to see if we can interdict, or if it is 2 weeks later, give us an idea of an area that we need to start watching.
Right. I also know that the Border Patrol actually sets up like a Derby Line Day, and which I think is very proactive, where you actually are there, so you can, talk to people and
Right.
show people your equipment, and, I think you are doing the right thing by coming on the show, and you are always welcome to come on, you or any of your men, and just because I do think that's a big role in, having people help you to show that you're human. And I'll tell you, as I've said, I've dealt with all law enforcement over the years in different roles, and I have respect for most of them. But at the Border Patrol, I often thought we're the greatest to deal with.
I appreciate that.
And and I can already tell that the Newport station, which is in Derby,
Right.
is in good hands. And as I said, Fernando gave you the highest recommendations. So, I want to thank you for coming on, and again, thank you for the role that the U.S. Border Patrol played in the recent drug raids, and thank you to all the lawmen who took part in it. And fortunately, this area is so blessed now to have an outstanding state's attorney, Jen Barrett,
Right.
because I think we're finally going to, chipping away at this drug problem. It's not going to happen overnight, and you know that.
Right.
But I think we're starting to make a little headway, and sooner or later, people are going to get the hint.
Right. And yesterday was a great example of how all the agencies can work together to address this. We can't each agency can't do it alone.
Right.
But if we work together, then we can address that. And I
And,
think it was a great
working
example.
together with the community, because I know, I don't know the details, but I know you also had a lot of help from members of the community throughout the months that helped
Right.
pull things
Right. If
together.
people want to change their community and change the way things are, they have to get involved, and we want them to.
Okay. All right. Hey, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. I
Right.
appreciate it.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.